Hi there guys, welcome to this week's session. So you've only got about a 20-minute coaching feed on this one because it's a course-based session and I'm realistic as to how much you're going to want to listen to me in this session because yeah, we're all going to be out of sync, and so you're going to have me huffing and puffing, shouting away, and you might be on a descent or something. But yeah, so I've just got a timer there, a very short one in case somebody wants to get themselves roughly synced up. So I'm going to run through the warm-up with you, talk you through the session, and do a little bit of do all of our discussion. Okay? So if you need something to get yourself synced in some way, you're going to start the chat and stuff in about 10 seconds. Okay, and the warm-up's going to be about 20 minutes long. So get yourself ready, starting off 2, 1. Okay, let's get going with the session. So, you're going to want the North Lake loop if you haven't already chosen it. Hopefully you've read the instructions on Training Peaks. If you can't get on with Training Peaks Virtual for whatever reason, the Dukey or Dutchy course on Zwift is good, and it's very similar. Topo, it's very similar length. It's 2.6 kilometers this course. The Dutchy course on Zwift is 2.8. Say very similar profile, so much the same. So the way the session works is the first 20 minutes, and I'm going to take through the first 20. We're just going to have a little chat. Yeah, so first 20 minutes, just warming up, and then you're going to finish the lap that you're on after the warm up, and then it's very simple. But oddly, I find this session actually brings up the most questions because it is so simple. 20-minute warm up, and then from that, after that, every time you hit an incline, you go hard, you recover on the decline, and you go hard on the incline. You just keep doing that. And so it doesn't matter if you're on North Lake Loop on Training Peaks Virtual or the Dutchy course on Zwift, you're going to do 6 laps hard. Okay? 20-minute warm up, then 6 hot laps, where every incline you go hard, every decline you recover. Okay, so it should be around 20-25 minutes of hard work. And then, yeah, I just recommend you finish the hour with some easy riding, just for an extra little bit of volume. I wouldn't necessarily do more than 6 laps because we're very much at the start of this next training phase. This is a tough one. I've actually just done it. Okay, so I'm on my cool down, and so I thought I'd take you to the discussion whilst I'm doing it. Okay, so yeah, our chat this week, we're going to talk about heat acclimation or acclimatization. So I'll take you through that, and then I'll drop away, and then you can just get the music loud and crack on hitting those hot laps. Okay, so stay with me for the chat, and then I'll disappear. So yeah, in an ideal world, if you're doing an event in a hot climate, you would spend a couple of weeks abroad somewhere nice. Yeah, getting used to the heat. You know, maybe like a month out before that big event. But for many of us, that's just not realistic. But the good news is, there's an increasing body of research that indicates some more practical or kind of at-home methods for kind of provoking heat acclimation developments in your body, and yeah, they're really practical and easy to do, and they're great for doing before that big event abroad. But let's just quickly cover like what we're talking about when we're talking about acclimatization, acclimation, whatever word you want to use. But basically, what you're doing is you're repeatedly exposing your body to heat in like a controlled way to produce physiological adaptations that improve tolerance to heat and ultimately improve your performance in hot conditions. Okay, so we're talking like things like exposure to heat, increasing your blood plasma levels, your blood plasma volume. So that's the fluid content of your blood. Ultimately meaning you have more fluid to expel through sweat and to expel heat in that way. you know, that all basically means reduce cardiovascular strain, so lower exercising heart rate in the heat, improve stroke volume, so more blood pumped per heartbeat, and basically, you know, reduce competition between kind of your body's desire to push blood towards your skin to expel heat through sweat, and your body's desire to pump blood into your muscles to fuel the hard work. There's also thermoregulation adaptations, so being able to maintain your core temperature better, keeping it lower, reduce resting core temperature and things like that, and just basically making you more efficient at shedding excess heat. So what that means in practice is you start to sweat earlier, which many people would think, like, if you're not as good in the heat, you would sweat earlier. But actually, in fact, the better acclimatized you are, the earlier your body will respond to excess heat. And also means, you know, increased skin blood flow, so more kind of like blood vessels near your skin to help shed, to kind of help the blood sort of flow under your skin, and then that blood plasma escapes in the form of sweat and takes heat with it. So yeah, improved heat dissipation in that way. Your sweat also becomes more diluted because of that increased blood plasma levels, and so it helps you maintain an electrolyte balance more easily. So, you know, things like heat stress, hyponatremia, that sort of thing. You know, you just stay away from getting into that state because, you know, you just have a better electrolyte balance in your blood. So reduce risk of cramping as well. So all the good stuff really that makes racing in a hot climate, well, not necessarily enjoyable, but just less hellish. So it talks about increased capillarization in the skin, better blood distribution, blah blah blah. Hormonal adaptations, I'm not going to go into that because that's boring, to be honest. But basically it's to do with kind of sodium reabsorption, you know, and again just keeping your blood plasma levels high, or balanced. But one kind of cool thing is, you know, you make adaptations on the cellular level, so you actually your cells themselves have a greater tolerance to thermal stress, so like the proteins don't denature as easily, and you know, you maintain cell structure. Which I just thought was a pretty cool one. And so yeah, basically your cells don't get as easily damaged due to heat stress. And then of course, just like one really big and obvious one is just how you feel in the heat changes, and that's significant because that's going to feed into kind of like your mental perception, and how hard you can push yourself and how much you enjoy it. So you just have greater thermal comfort. So those are all the adaptations that happen when you're frequently exposing yourself to heat in order to provoke adaptations. The methods. What methods are we talking about? Well, there's kind of like 3 or 4 really. Probably the first 2 are like the kind of the ones that really cover it. And the first one's my favorite, which is post-exercise passive heating. And basically what that means is you train and then immediately expose your body to heat. So you do a session and then you have a hot bath. It needs to be around 40 degrees, the water, and for 30-40 minutes. I'm not a massive fan of baths personally, but the second one I would prefer, which is to hit the sauna. Maximum 30 minutes though in the sauna. They're usually very warm. Hitting the sauna after a gym session. Most gyms, it's a pretty easy thing to do. The third one, which is less effective, is to have a hot shower. So if you've ever done a session before work, immediately jumped into the shower, and then you're still sweating when you get out, oddly enough, you are actually provoking heat adaptations. But it's shit. And it's less effective because you're not going to spend as much time in a hot shower. It's just a lot of water, really, isn't it? So, why do those kind of post-exercise heat exposure methods work? Well, it's all the good stuff that we talked about, really. You know, you're basically you've got elevated core temperature from the exercise, and then the sort of passive heat prolongs the thermal stress, and it just kind of kickstarts all those adaptations, whilst you're without sort of the cardiovascular and the respiratory load of the exercise. So yeah, and then the second one, you probably do these first two methods together but separately. You do them as part of your training, but you very much do them separately. You definitely don't want to do them both. So the second method is indoor heat training. So that's doing it in a heated room, you know, somewhere upwards of 30 degrees. You've got reduced airflow, which is an important one, which is actually potentially a con. I'll talk about in a second. And then you would actually probably do this in conjunction with the third method, which is overdressing during training. Really key point about indoor heat training in a hot room, and overdressing. The training that you're doing has to be at a moderate level. So you're talking tempo, 80% of FTP maximum, sub threshold absolutely, okay, and just sort of easy, relatively easy, steady state. But definitely not high intensity session. So you would not do a session like this tonight or today, whenever you're doing it. The stress would just be overwhelming, and you just put yourself in a world of trouble. So when it comes to and this also goes towards kind of post-exercise heat exposure, the session that you do, you don't want it to be super intense. Okay, you don't want to be already on the limit then go into a sauna. Okay, so when you're combining these methods, the training, the exercise needs to be moderate. Okay, so you know, a really common one that a lot of athletes do is they'll hit the sauna after going to the gym doing their strength work, because it's, you know, whilst when you're actually lifting the weights, that's hard. You know, lots of recovery in between. The session itself should be, your heart rate shouldn't be that high. So that's a good example of one. But yeah, so the first two methods, first one, post-exercise heat exposure. Second one is an indoor heat training in a hot room. And the third one, as I kind of already mentioned, is overdressing. So on that one, as I say, you do it with potentially training in the heated room as well. But kind of what I'm talking about is, you know, if I'm wearing what I'm wearing at the moment, you know, normal cycling get up, alternative, what I would wear instead is I would wear like a hoodie or a jumper, or, you know, like a cycling jacket. I probably wouldn't wear a rain jacket because it's not breathable at all. I think it'd probably just put you over the edge, but it depends on your environment. Like, this garage is pretty cold, so I would potentially might if I was doing it. But yeah, I would also make sure I was wearing bib tights. So you want your lower half covered as well. You want your whole body covered, okay? Just one really key thing about training in a heated room or overdressed, okay? There are some kind of cons, some hazards to be aware of. It is a lot of strain. You have to be very careful with it. And one of the things that I worry about most is training in a heated room in particular, is the lack of airflow. So I've experienced this in virtual racing a few times, you know, particularly when I was younger, in a small flat, windows closed because I was an idiot, and just the lack of fresh oxygen coming in. Basically what happens when you're in an enclosed environment, a hot environment like that, as you breathe, as you sweat, the environment gets more and more humid, which means less oxygen, okay? And you just start to overheat. And I have had it on occasions where I've fainted after a race. So you just got to be really careful. Like the actual ideal would be to have, you know, a cracked window or something so that fresh air is coming in, even if the rest of the room is heated. Like, there is a knack to it. But yeah, just really make sure you got fresh air coming in. Some, you know, that often doing this sort of stuff in a gym environment is good. One, because there's other people there in case you do kind of go a bit woo-woo. But also, like, the larger environment, generally speaking, it means there's plenty of oxygen in the room, and it's not gonna, become a humid sort of oxygenless chamber. Okay. The final method is just heat exposure without exercise. So basically going to a sauna. Obviously much less effective because of its sort of much smaller stimulus. But it's a great one to add into the mix. So, you know, on recovery days or whatever, just 30 minutes in a sauna, just to kind of help with the frequency approach, because that is important. Ideally daily, some sort of exposure, 5 to 6 sessions a week. If you're really going for it, something's always better than nothing. So don't get overwhelmed, like, oh god, I need to do this every day. The time frame, the period of exposure is also important. So you want to be doing this for at least a couple of weeks, I'd say. More the better. So yeah, you probably need at least 2 weeks for kind of noticeable adaptations. And yeah, so that's kind of the chat about heat acclimation. Like, I think all those methods are super simple. I'll run through them very quickly again. So you've got post-exercise heat exposure, so doing a moderate level session, tempo absolute maximum, sub threshold, non-negotiable, and then follow up with 30 minutes in the sauna, 30-40 minute hot bath, or if you really push for time, just a hot shower. So that's the first method. Second method is training in a heated environment. Practically a little bit more challenging, but is very effective. You want the room kind of upwards of 30 degrees. You can combine it with overdressing, but just remember that's that second and third method, what I said about making sure there's airflow, and just being very sensible about it, because you don't want to faint, put yourself into trouble. I would, so for most of you guys, I would probably use both of those first two methods together, but separately. So what you don't want to do, indoor heat training, then go in the sauna. It's too much, man. So you do it on separate days, and you'd have to balance it all with the rest of your training. And then just finally, non-exercise related heat exposure, so sauna, hot bath and stuff. I haven't read it, but I did see there is a study about just kind of doing 45-minute baths each day, just on their own, having some impact. I haven't read that study though, as I say. But yeah, so that's it basically, guys. Those are kind of some really practical heat acclimation methods. So I'm just very quickly gonna, for those that are on Training Peaks Virtual, I'm just gonna take you through. I'm just gonna finish off this lap, and I'll take you through kind of how you're gonna do this. So if you're on Zwift as well, you might want to just watch for a few more minutes. But it's very simple, this session. We'll just come to the end of the warm-up. You want to do sort of 20 minutes plus. You then want to make sure you finish your lap. So start a fresh lap. So I just got this, let me just pull up a little bit more. Just got this final last little lit. And then, so yeah, if you're on Training Peaks Virtual, basically every time there's a little rise on this lap, North Lake Loop, you're just gonna gun it. Okay, then when it levels off or drops into descent, that's your recovery. So you're talking, you got there's 3 little rises on this course. Middle one is longer and pretty miserable. But yeah, it's very straightforward. Right, let's get to the end of this lap. I'm just gonna put it up a little bit so I can show you what you're doing. But it is very simple. So just to note, on the North Lake Loop, the first climb starts very soon after the lap start, just so you don't get shocked. Right, let's get through this lap. And what you want to do is just really be explosive. If you find that you're getting a bit scrappy, you're snatching at gears, you're really struggling, I would just recommend doing the efforts for at least a couple just seated and just kind of a little bit more kind of measured. But yeah, you're basically doing 18 efforts on, you're doing it on Training Peaks Virtual, so 6 laps. So I'll just do this first one so you can see what we're up to. So as soon as the gradient goes up, so at 1%, so we're out the saddle, going for it. Then we're going to sit down and just really drive it all the way to the top. Keep pushing, keep pushing. This first one, the first and second one, there's some quite little steep sections. So you've got to be very focused, conscious of your gearing. And then as soon as the gradient drops off, relax. Then just spin up down the hill. And then as soon as the gradient goes up again, we go again. So each lap there's 3 little lifts. You're doing 6 laps. Enjoy. Right, I'm going to sign off now and let you crack on. But enjoy, guys. Don't think too much. Just go.